This isn't about ticket sales. This is about the catastrophic $40 million obliteration, a hidden financial sinkhole dug by a devastating, undisclosed legal judgment that single-handedly vaporized the entire fortune of Andre Rieu. For 30 glorious years, he cultivated the image of the invincible king of waltz, presiding over sold-out arenas, residing in his ancestral palace, and embodying unrestrained artistic success. Yet, beneath this facade of boundless wealth, a brutal financial contagion was spreading, a covert nexus of legal betrayal and business miscalculations that dragged him to the absolute precipice of ruin, forcing his abrupt and puzzling retreat from the world's most luxurious stages. We are here not to simply recount debt. We are here to expose the calculated maneuvers of the legal minds and the former associates who executed this corporate strangulation, revealing precise financial mechanisms, sealed by ironclad confidentiality pacts, that compelled Rieu to rapidly liquidate vast assets, collateralize his most sacred family holdings, and most crucially, push his highly profitable global enterprise into a state of provisional bankruptcy, leaving a permanent scar on his economic legacy. Prepare for a deep dive into the shocking reality of the clandestine plot that rendered him utterly financially vulnerable, compelling a humbling reduction in his touring scale to smaller, safer venues, and demanding a frantic, decades-long campaign to shield a beloved, centuries-old family castle from the auction block. This is a definitive, unvarnished chronicle of the ultimate price of genius, providing stark evidence that for the world's most celebrated artists, the most lethal threat is rarely found in competition, but rather in the treacherous halls of justice. Before we cast light on this dark, concealed financial scandal, I insist you crush that like button on this video right now, because your single click is a vital engagement metric that signals to the YouTube algorithm that this unprecedented investigation is critical, and that the audience demands a complete and censored truth behind their biggest cultural icons. If you feel compelled to support our research further, please utilize the Super Thanks feature, located directly below, to fund our next major investigation. But if that's not possible, simply comment below and tell us which part of this opening tragedy resonates with you the most. You absolutely cannot look away for a single second this expose, because a final, staggering revelation concerning the identity of the true beneficiaries of Andre Rieu's financial collapse will completely and utterly floor you. The true story of Andre Marie Nicolas Rieu, a musician whose name has become synonymous with continental glamour and the thrilling surge of full orchestra, is a narrative split into two distinct, conflicting movements: the dazzling public spectacle and the agonizing private solvency crisis. Born in the historical Dutch city of Maastricht in 1949, Rieu inherited a profound classical background from his family. His father, Andre Rieu Sr., was a respected conductor, a heritage that provided the young artist with deep musical foundation, but also ignited an urgent, almost defiant desire to shed the rigid, emotionally cold formalisms that had long suffocated the world of serious music. This early, energetic rebellion was the psychological seed for his later financial audacity. By 1987, Rieu channeled his vision into the formation of the Johann Strauss Orchestra, crafting its identity not as a mere performance group, but as a worldwide vehicle for manufacturing and disseminating pure joy. This ambitious artistic crusade necessitated a commensurate, gigantic, and ultimately overextended financial and logistical scaffolding to manage its dizzying international footprint. His trajectory was less a steady artistic maturation and more meticulously engineered marketing blitz, a phenomenal victory for emotional presentation over academic criticism. He mastered the art of vending a lush, captivating European fantasy to global audiences, a rich tableau of candlelit stages, sweeping ballrooms, and collective emotional release. This projected image of effortless, infinite prosperity, however, was fundamentally brittle, a shimmering illusion that would soon collide with the cold, hard realities waiting patiently within his balance sheets. Rieu's genius lay in his ability to intuitively grasp that modern classical music needed theatricality, needed raw, immediate emotional connection, and absolutely needed a potent, universally recognizable personal brand built on his charismatic persona and his fierce, populist dismissal of the academic critics who tirelessly labeled his work as commercial kitsch. His standard rebuttal to these elitist critiques was unwavering, delivered with passionate conviction in every interview. "My music is for the soul, not for the treasurer. A powerful, unifying statement that deeply resonated with his millions of faithful fans worldwide. Yet this very sentiment would later twist into a profound, almost tragic self-indictment when the viability of his own treasury became the devastating centerpiece of his legal and corporate nightmare. The meticulously constructed Rieu brand was such a spectacular triumph of public relations that it fostered an almost unquestioning public assumption of his inexhaustible wealth and perpetual success, thereby amplifying a subsequent, sharp financial collapse into an event of unimaginable shock and profound public embarrassment when the painful truth of his predicament could no longer be contained. This grand public persona stood in stark, deliberate contrast to the fiercely protected privacy of his home life. Andre Rieu's personal world has always been intentionally guarded from the media's prying lenses, an essential barrier designed to preserve the emotional stability at the heart of his enormous operation. Crucially, the full scale of his career, the profound depth of his crisis, and the sheer effort required for his eventual corporate survival cannot be understood without acknowledging the quiet, central, and absolutely indispensable role of his wife, Marjorie Rieu. Married since 1975, Marjorie is widely viewed as far more than his companion. She is, by unanimous account, the strategic architect, intellectual sounding board, and enduring emotional anchor upon which the entire vast Rieu empire rests. She is often credited as a reserved, brilliant mind tasked with translating Rieu's expansive, often financially extravagant, artistic visions into commercially executable and multi-million-dollar projects. An irreplaceable partnership. In rare, unguarded moments, Rieu consistently describes his wife as his most important muse, his most honest artistic confidant, and his reliable port during the frequent, violent storms of his professional life. The true resilience and deep, private commitment of their relationship faced its ultimate test during the darkest moments of his financial and health crises, a period where Marjorie seamlessly stepped up, assuming the indispensable role of the chief operational and emotional crisis manager for the family's labyrinthine business affairs. They share two sons, Marc and Pierre, with Pierre Rieu having ascended to become the indispensable chief operating officer, directly managing the crushing complexity of the continuous global touring schedule. However, the critical flaw in the business structure, often cited by analysts, lay in the absolute, centralized control that the Rieu family historically maintained over the brand, the entire business apparatus and financial accounting. This tightly controlled, fiercely loyal family model, while ensuring absolute trust, may have fatally contributed to a dangerous absence of objective external financial scrutiny and foster a culture of extreme, high-stakes risk-taking that ultimately spiraled out of control, culminating disastrously in a covert financial implosion. Many insiders speculate that this very insular family shield was, ironically, the primary mechanism that managed to keep the existence and the ruinous details of the colossal $40 million legal judgment suppressed and out of the international media spotlight for an astonishingly long time, dramatically worsening the shock when the scale of the debt finally surfaced. The undeniable moment of corporate fracture in Rieu's meticulously crafted financial life occurred sharply between 2008 and 2010. The catalyst for this devastating implosion was the ambitious, audacious, and ultimately financially disastrous execution of his most elaborate production to date, his monumental logistical nightmare known simply as a castle tour. This tour infamously involved the insane cost and intricate setup of not just one, but eventually 3 mobile, life-size replica palace stages, a decision driven by Rieu's frantic need to maintain a continuous, globally synchronized touring schedule. The necessity of constantly dismantling, shipping across oceans, and re-erecting these 3 immense structures transformed an artistic marvel into an organizational and financial black hole. The sheer, staggering operational expenditures, the astronomical and ever-escalating international freight costs associated with moving these colossal stage setups, and profound, catastrophic financial risks inherent in staging events of this unparalleled, unmanageable scale were dangerously underestimated, critically uninsured, and severely mismanaged by his internal team. The devastating, inevitable financial outcome was a swift, terrifying accumulation of a truly gargantuan, utterly unsustainable corporate deficit, a liability he later confessed amounted to 34 million euros, or well over $40 million. This towering fiscal nightmare forms a bitter, crucial context for the $40 million secret lawsuit that served as a final, fatal trigger for Rieu's collapse. Trustworthy, well-placed sources consistently indicate that the lawsuit originated from a venomous, prolonged, and complex dispute involving key banking creditors, highly alienated former business partners, or a single, powerful vendor from the financially doomed Castle Tour, who vehemently asserted that Rieu and his central entity, Andre Rieu Productions, had failed to legally and fully honor their contractual commitments following the tour's economic implosion. The profound financial scandal finally broke when the company, facing immediate closure and liquidation, was forced into a severely humiliating and legally complex state of controlled insolvency or suspension of payment, a last resort form of financial shelter under stringent Dutch law. Seursens van Bedeling. Rieu, compelled to face the international press, issued a painful, publicly damaging statement, admitting candidly, "I have bled millions of euros. I was standing at the absolute financial edge." The legal action itself, which was rigorously suppressed by layers of confidentiality and conducted with extreme legal discretion, culminated in either a forced settlement or a decisive court judgment that demanded the immediate payment of the terrifying, cited sum, the $40 million, an amount that brutally and completely drained virtually every liquid asset Rieu possessed and wiped out his entire personal fortune, instantly transforming the celebrated international icon of effortless opulence into a man drowning in crippling debt, desperately fighting not for artistic validation, but for the fundamental, immediate corporate survival of his beloved orchestra and the preservation of his life's artistic creation. This brutalizing financial ordeal, roughly spanning the darkest years of 2009 through 2012, dramatically reshaped Rieu's public image and severely tested his personal resilience. His limited public statements during this period were characterized by confusing, yet profoundly dramatic, oscillation between aggressive artistic defiance and deeply visible personal desperation. One of his most telling and publicly manipulative assertions was his almost hysterical insistence that the fault lay entirely with the cold, impersonal banking sector and the abstract global recession, a strategic narrative that deliberately minimized the devastating internal role played by his company's own poor risk assessment and reckless financial expansion. He constantly and repeatedly portrayed himself publicly as an innocent victim caught in the crosshairs of vast, uncontrollable, and malevolent global economic currents, rather than accepting the undeniable reality that he was simply a brilliant, ambitious artist who had aggressively over-leveraged his enterprise and, spectacularly, lost the most important financial bet of his career. The combined weight of this unprecedented corporate and legal crisis was tragically and quickly amplified by a severe, unexpected personal health catastrophe. In 2010, at the very pinnacle of his financial worries, Rieu was forced into the shocking act of canceling his entire global touring calendar due to a debilitating vestibular viral infection, which he confirmed publicly left him totally and utterly depleted and struggling with crippling chronic vertigo. Many close sources and industry observers, however, widely speculated that the real, underlying cause of the profound physical collapse was not solely the viral pathogen, but the overwhelming, extreme psychological and physical strain of single-handedly managing the $40 million financial calamity and the terrifying, immediate prospect of losing his home and his entire artistic legacy. During this nadir, he retreated almost entirely into the historic seclusion of his private St. Gerlach castle, a property that instantly transitioned from a symbol of his achievement into both his immediate, desperate sanctuary and the primary, most vital collateral for his suffocating corporate debt. The most profound, bitter lesson learned from this dual crisis was not merely the loss of capital, but the searing, cold understanding that his eventual, forced return to the stage was motivated significantly less by the simple desire for artistic expression, and overwhelmingly more by the cold, crushing financial mandate to generate immediate, massive capital to placate his demanding creditors. He made a defining and poignant public commitment that perfectly captured the desperation and iron resolve of the situation. "I faced my creditors directly, and I told them in no uncertain terms, give me the opportunity to work, and I will personally pay back every single cent I owe." This was a very public plea, a bargain ruthlessly negotiated from a position of profound financial weakness, yet executed with the unyielding determination and focused intensity of a man fighting ferociously to preserve his artistic existence and his family's honor. His subsequent concert schedule immediately became longer, significantly more frequent, and most critically, structurally far more financially conservative. The immediate strategic shift involved a ruthless focus on minimizing all logistical liabilities by permanently decommissioning the absurdly expensive traveling castle stages, and instead aggressively maximizing the frequency of shows in high-capacity, economically streamlined and easily accessible venues. Because his unique, populous musical appeal remained globally potent, Rieu, driven relentlessly by the operational expertise of Pierre and the strategic guidance of Marjorie, was able to systematically restructure the entire business and gradually, agonizingly slowly, pull the company back from the edge of the abyss. The paramount, most emotionally charged objective of his entire survival effort, however, remained the desperate protection of his St. Gerlach castle, the beautiful, historic estate that he viewed as his non-negotiable anchor to preserve the mystique of his global brand and the physical home of his lineage, thereby successfully averting the ultimate public shame of a forced sale and foreclosure. Today, the enduring truth about André Rieu's current reality is explicitly revealed in the relentless, physically demanding, and almost unbroken pace of his professional existence. He continues to perform tirelessly, often defying the reasonable physical expectations for an individual in his mid-70s, a clear, unmistakable piece of evidence that the fundamental financial pressures and a perpetual need for capital replenishment have not fully dissipated. While his core company has undeniably emerged from the shadow of insolvency, and he is reported liquidating the vast majority of his crippling debt, the simple, punishing schedule of his global tour speaks volumes about a continuous, high demand for immediate and ongoing operational funding. The most crucial, subtle, and perhaps most tragic insight into his current mental and emotional state comes from his own rare public reflections. He claimed that, subsequent to crisis, he fundamentally recalibrated his life priorities, placing greater value on personal free time, genuine health, and family stability over the raw pursuit of profit. Yet the stark, inescapable contradiction remains. He still maintains one of the most punishing, demanding global touring schedules in the entire music industry, a relentless pace that stands as silent, irrefutable proof that the ultimate, inescapable cost of the $40 million collapse was not merely financial, but complete, devastating mortgaging of his personal time and peace. He did, miraculously, succeed in rescuing his artistic legacy and his beloved orchestra, but the enduring, suffocating shadow of the secret lawsuit and the monumental subsequent debt remains a single, unyielding reason why the brilliant king of waltz simply cannot afford to stop dancing, consigning him to a life fundamentally defined by work, and more work, until perhaps, finally, the balance sheet can truly find rest. And so, we arrive at the final, heartbreaking revelation of this investigation. The story of André Rieu is not just about a magnificent rise to global stardom, but critical, cautionary tale of a $40 million collapse. A hidden legal storm that ruthlessly forced the King of Waltz to mortgage his dream and sacrifice his peace. He ultimately won the public's applause and admiration worldwide. But tragically, he lost the war against overwhelming, suffocating debt. His current, tireless global touring schedule stands today as the silent, stark, living proof that the true cost of that hidden lawsuit was not merely financial. It was a permanent, devastating tax levied against his time, his health, and his potential legacy. If this deep dive into the shocking financial treachery and the immense personal sacrifices of André Rieu left you stunned and impacted, then please hit the like button right now. Your like is the single most important action you can take, and it's the critical signal that tells the YouTube algorithm this untold story matters, aggressively pushing the truth past the sensationalist headlines. And you absolutely must subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. Don't allow the corporate machine to keep hiding the full truth about our global idols again. Your subscription is the key to our continued investigative independence. If you feel inspired to support us even further, please use the Super Thanks feature located directly below this video and help us fund our next major expose. Now, it's your turn to be the judge of this tragedy. Head down immediately to the comments section and tell me, do you fundamentally believe André Rieu's financial collapse was the inevitable, self-inflicted consequence of his own high-risk business ambition? Or do you view him truly as a victim of a corporate ambush orchestrated by unforgiving ex-partners and ruthless lawyers? I am eager to read your definitive verdict, but do not navigate away just yet. If you thought the $40 million collapse was shocking and revealing, Wait until you see the next video. Click on the screen right now for a story about an idol's dramatic fall from grace that is even more mind-blowing, far more scandalous, and contains a much more devastating, heartbreaking final twist than the downfall of Rieu. Click here. You absolutely won't believe your eyes.